Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Quintessentially Whole. Tonight, Ann Callahan and I are going to do a show on building your natural first aid kit. So how you doing, Ann? You're muted.
That's a great start, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm good. So interesting timing, actually. A report just came out of America on the overuse of antibiotics, and a whole load of American physicians are calling for people to start investigating homeopathy, which is really surprising. Very surprising.
Shockingly so. Shockingly so.
We wait to see what they'll try to do to homeopaths next. But anyway, duck and cover.
Duck and cover. Always. So there was a specific timeline that follows the creation of this show. And that I want to talk about because we all have those thud moments and you just go, wow, we really need to address this. And basically about a week and a half ago, I had a headache. And I did all my usual tricks because I do pressure point work on my head, and I'm very good at being able to move migraines and move headaches and most of the time I can usually get rid of them completely. Sometimes they'll go away, but then they'll come back an hour, 2 hours later. So I'd gone through the whole day. I had managed to keep control of the headache for most of the day. And then I got towards the evening time, and it was just like you're trying to cook dinner. And so you're kind of rushed. You're trying to get through all the stuff that's in your kids are running around the kitchen. And it was just like, okay, this headache now is overwhelming. I have to take something. And I walked over to like the medicine cabinet and I pulled out an ibuprofen. And as I'm pulling it out of the medicine cabinet, I'm telling Nick about a study that I just read about ibuprofen, that using ibuprofen increases your risk of strokes and heart attacks, etc., by something ridiculous, like 65% or something like that. I'm telling him this as I'm putting the ibuprofen in my mouth and swishing it back. And I was just like, wow, we need to address these things. Like we all have those moments, and I joke because Anne sitting behind her on that shelf load of homeopathics and tinctures and crystal essences, and I mean shelf loads. And it's the same with me. I've got boxes and boxes and shelves and all the rest of it. But sometimes you get to the point where you're sick and you run down and you don't think, and you will automatically, your hand goes out and you're like, oh, I just need to take this Panadol, Tylenol, ibuprofen for this headache, backache, sore throat. And you do it. And even though you know these things are terrible for you, you just do it because it's like to think of the options, the other options, is, you have to go sit down and look it up, and it's too much in that moment. So we fall back on this programming. And that's what it is. We have been completely and thoroughly programmed. Get sick, take a pill. Get sick, take a pill. Get sick, take a pill. And therefore, if you have them in your house, you fall back on them and you take them because you're in a rush, you're in a hurry, you got shit you got to get done. We all do it. And no, okay, and Charlotte, here's one of those things, because she just said if you don't have ibuprofen in the house, you won't take it. Absolutely. And my whole thing is because I'm a medic, was trained as a medic, I have a rather extensive first aid kit. My kit is a little over and above what most people would have. But because of that experience, I also know that there is a time and a place where sometimes emergency medication is necessary, whatever the reason is. So therefore, I've always got certain things on hand. I even have antibiotics that I keep on hand because occasionally there's a time and a place, and it's like, okay, this has to be done, and this has to be done right now. Having said that, what we want to talk about tonight is building a first aid kit, a natural remedies first aid kit. And we're going to talk about homeopathy, we're going to talk about herbalism, we're going to talk about essential oils, we're going to talk about CO2 Gans. We're going to talk about a lot of these kinds of things. But the idea is that a lot of people can be overwhelmed by this subject because it's like, oh my God, there's so much to learn. I've got to relearn everything. So what we want to do tonight is keep it relatively simple. And I've done some, and Anne has done some really great graphics too, because of visual learning. We're going to do some visual learning. Most of the stuff that we're going to talk about, as far as the natural kinds of stuff, you already have in your kitchen probably. But you may not know what it's good for. You may not even realize how much of the natural kit you have on hand. So we're going to jump into this with 2 feet. Anne, do you want to start off with the one little piece that you'd put together?
Yeah. Okay. So I hope this isn't a bit too teachery for you all, but it's something that we just need to look at anyway.
Visual learning aids. There we go. We can see it.
You can see it. Okay. So transitioning from pharma medicine to, and I'm calling it immune enhancing medicine because it's not necessarily all herbs and plants. But what we're looking at ways to activate our own immune response because we all have one. We all have a natural, inbuilt, intelligent, vital force that knows how to heal. And when we're sick, it's simply that some part of that healing energy is blocked for some reason. I just wanted to break it down. Sometimes people, like Danny said, people are kind of overwhelmed at like, well, where do you start? What do you do? And I just want to say that first, the easiest thing to treat is what I would call accidents. First aid, bumps, bruises, cuts, falls, burns, that kind of thing. And the reason that these are easy to treat is that almost everybody responds the same way to these kind of external events. If you like, this is something that happens to you from the outside. It's not something that you have developed because of a diseased situation in your body. So transitioning to treating these kind of things is dead easy and can be done immediately. You really don't need to think too much about it. There's just a few key things. I'll be talking later about some of the homeopathic remedies. Danny will be talking about a lot of the first aid home remedies that you can use. Acute illness is the next level that you can treat at home. And an acute illness is something that starts quickly, that has a specific duration, and ends, as the old books used to say, in either life or death. So an acute illness always resolves. And the things that we commonly see, a healthy immune response will produce acute illness because it is the body's way of coming back into balance. So a healthy system will produce a fever if it needs to burn out a virus or bacteria. It will cough if it needs to clear the lungs. It will produce a cold if there's too much mucus around. Flu's slightly different, but still within the realm of, anybody really can learn how to treat a flu once you get the hang of it. Tummy upsets, food poisoning, that kind of thing. So it takes a little bit of practice to get, familiar. One of the things that we all need to learn or relearn is basic nursing skills, actually. We need to, sorry, my helper, the cat, has arrived.
Little bollocks, can you move your butt?
The little bollocks is, yeah.
Here comes the butt shot. There we go. Show everyone your butt. There you go.
Yeah, so that's one of the things we've got to figure out is how to nurse ourselves, because that's a skill that was taken out of circulation with the advent of the Industrial Revolution, really, because people were encouraged to be at their desks 5 days a week. And, you know, even when I was a kid in the late 50s, it was perfectly fine to take time out to go to bed and just heal yourself. Mothers knew how, and fathers too, how to nurse fevers and coughs and colds and so on. Now there's, you know, people don't allow themselves time. They want to work through things. They want to push through things. So if they get a cold or a cough, they want to stop it immediately. And that's what allopathic medicine does. Allopathic is opposites, the medicine of opposites. And what allopathic medicine does, it just stops what the body is doing. Now, in an emergency situation, that can be life-saving. And so really, you know, if we only used allopathic medicine for about 10% of what we did and used 90% of what we do is immune enhancing, then that would be quite a good balance. At the moment, it's worse than the opposite. In fact, it's like more than 90% reliance on allopathic medicine. So we constantly stop what the body is trying to do until the body has no choice but to go into a pattern of chronic illness. And that's the third tick on that screen. So chronic illness, eventually, you know, the body will try and try and try to heal itself and rebalance by going through these, and eventually it gives up, runs out of energy, and goes into a pattern of chronic dis-ease. So a chronic condition is therefore something that you've had for a long time. A chronic illness shows no tendency to heal by itself and will continue until some action is taken. Now, again, with allopathic medicine, the first sign of the body, as I said before, the body is an organized energy system. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. You know, if the body chose to heal your big toe when it should be healing your heart, you know, we'd have died out long ago. So the body will always heal. It'll always address dis-ease in a particular way. Will always go to the most important organs, and it uses, that's the first thing it will address. And it will, when it produces, conversely then, when it's producing a sickness, it will always produce a sickness in the least important place, and that is usually on the skin, on the outermost, well away from the vital organs. So the pattern of chronic illness usually goes from the outside to the inside. And you'll find that people start out with a chronic skin condition or something like that. The allopathic medicine pushes it from the outside to a more interior place, and so on and so on. And so very often you'll find that people, if they've had a lot of allopathic treatment, then, well, the other thing that happens, of course, is when you take an allopathic medicine, the body will produce another symptom. And if you go to the doctor will see this
another one.
Completely different disease. In fact, of course, we know that it's just another expression of the same energy imbalance. So what you'll find is that, you know, people who've been having allopathic medicine for some time may be on 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different drugs, each one in, you know, causing their own side effects and causing the body to produce symptoms in different places. So my recommendation is, if you're dealing with chronic disease and you want to transition to pharma medicine, it can be done, but it's not something to do overnight, because you need to peel back the disease that has happened over a period of time. Don't drop your meds overnight, because what will happen when you do that is that the body will probably try to rebalance more quickly than you can cope with. And I would suggest that if if you're on a lot of medication, you should work with somebody, a specialist therapist, like a naturopath, homeopath, somebody like that, who can see you through this reduction of medicine and deal with any symptoms that come up as the body comes back into balance. Any questions?
Any questions on the first slideshow? Well, this is, yeah.
I just want to say something about pain as well.
Yes.
Which is important, really. And again, we've, in this society, we've been taught to ignore pretty much everything the body is trying to say to us. But pain has a purpose. Pain and inflammation. Pain is the body's way of saying, something's wrong and I need attention. And this is something to keep in mind, even when you use natural medicines. If you find that you're having a pain, you use a natural medicine and the pain comes back and comes back and comes back, there may be a deeper cause that you need to look at. So natural medicines, that's something to keep in mind. And stopping pain with painkillers is like taking the red warning light out of your car dashboard. Eventually there'll be trouble.
Well,
okay.
That's it. But that's unfortunately, that's exactly the main system of allopathic medicine. And I've even watched it over the course of my own life because I was involved in sports as a teenager. So I was always in the doctor's office with ligaments and sprains and broken fingers and stuff like that. Even back then, you got sent for physiotherapy. So you might be given an allopathic drug, like they'd give you an NSAID, you get naproxen or something like this as an anti-inflammatory. But then they would send you to physiotherapy. And the physiotherapy was looking at the physical structure of the area that's having a problem and what can we do, and they build with exercises and things like that. That's changed. Like in a lot of places now, I'm looking at people where it's like they're getting told, here's these drugs, here's a plethora of drugs, here's a painkiller, here's an anti-inflammatory, and here's something for your stomach because they're going to eat a hole through your stomach, so you're going to have to take this pill for your stomach as well, and of course you're not going to be able to sleep because of all of these, so here's a sleeping pill to go with it. And yet no focus at all seems to ever come back to the injured part. Now that's when you're dealing with an injury. When you're actually dealing with chronic pain that's not come from you fell down the stairs, you fell off your bike, there's an absolute specific symptom, there is very little work ever done in Western medicine to figure out why you have that pain. Now they've come up with a shit ton of lovely new diseases and terminology. Hold on. There's a bag blowing around my floor. To describe this pain. But nothing is ever done to address that disease or symptom. Nothing is ever done to address it. It's just treat the symptom as a very separate piece.
Yeah.
And therefore you take the drugs. And it may get rid of your pain. But it has not gotten rid of what caused the pain to begin with.
And one of the problems, Danny, is they don't do a timeline. With homeopathy, and then I think most alternatives, we start out with conception or even preconception. And there's a timeline is worked up on your history to this moment. What happened to you? What psychological things happened to you? What traumas happened to you? What constitutional weakness have you got? Inheritance have you got from your parents? And we can see then, very clearly on a timeline, for instance, you could see vaccination followed by onset of asthma, followed by, et cetera, track back. Exactly, Ben. So you just have that's something doctors never do. So they don't get to see, they can't take a big picture and say, ooh, right, I can see a progression here. And that's one of the things that is really important. I mean, even if you're looking at your own if you're looking at your own situation, it's worth it just doing a track back for yourself, doing, you know, your own life history, and just see if you can find incidents or situations that may have triggered particular symptoms.
It doesn't go into medical training at all. Like doctors modern doctors, they don't get that training of that this symptom may be something that's come from your childhood. And they have no concept. It's like I said, it's something that is completely lacking in their schooling. They have no concept that there can be things that have happened in your childhood that carry forward and may all of a sudden manifest as something very, very different and specific in adulthood, but it could be directly linked.
Absolutely. And they don't, by and large, look at your parents. I mean, that's something that with homeopathy, with constitutional treatment, we're also looking at constitutional homeopathic treatment is aimed at improving your inheritance. So if you come in with, you know, with specific illnesses on both sides of your family, you know that they're likely to show up in some way in your current life. There's some very, very funny comments. If I do a track back, I should probably be dead. Yeah. Okay, so Danny,
it's so lacking though. This is an area of, and we're getting more and more doctors coming out talking about this. I just actually watched a video today about a doctor who was in the States. It was talking about vaccines, and it was one of the congressional panels on vaccine stuff. And the doctor had some interesting things to say. And one of the things he said was, as doctors, we are not trained in vaccine science. We have no training in vaccine science. None. I was not trained in vaccine science. I was told this is the vaccine, this is how you give it, and this is what it's for. That's it. If they don't have the training, then they themselves don't even know what is lacking from their repertoire of what to look for. They don't know that there's questions to be asked.
No, they don't. And they are, I mean, they're working to such a schedule. I don't know how they do it. You know, they have to see so many people, and they have very little time for study outside of what they're actually doing on a daily basis anyway. So it's tough. It's tough for them. And then and I would also say patients, us, anybody who attends a doctor, it's up to us to make demands, to be clear about what we will have and what we will not have. Yeah. I know a doctor who's trying to go a very natural route, and he said, you know, he had people standing there at the end of the consultation saying, where's my prescription? So, you know, a lot of the doctors feel pressurized as well. Certainly here in Ireland, I don't know. I know in America it's more monetized, if you like, but it really is up to us as people who use the medical system to demand a different way, and to demand also access to alternatives, because that's something that is going to become more normal now, I would say.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that, because I remember having a conversation with my family doctor, who I've been going to my family doctor since I was 18 years old. So we have a great personal relationship, years and years and years. She doesn't bother me about the vaccine shit because she knows I'm highly opinionated, and she's not going to change my mind. So we have a great relationship. And she made a comment once we were talking about antibiotics, and she was like, I have patients who I can tell them, you have a viral infection. You have a viral infection. It's a throat infection. Yes, it is. It's viral. There's nothing we can do about it. Go home. And she's Eastern European, so she'd be like, go home, gargle warm water with salt, and just take it easy. And they'd be like, okay, but I need some antibiotics. And she'd say, no, it's a viral infection. Antibiotics don't treat viral infections, only for bacterial. And they would be like, well, no, I need antibiotics. And as even the doctor, she said so many times, she would write out prescriptions for antibiotics and going, okay, here you go. Because they demand it because it's their programming. The programming again. I have an infection. I need antibiotics to fix that infection.
And actually, there's another thing I want to bring up, Danny, and that is fear.
Yes.
There's no trust in the life process. We've lost trust in the life process. And so America is one of the most litigious nations on earth, and Ireland was a, close second. So there's this terrible fear on the part of the medics. If they're not, motivated by money, they're motivated by the fear of being sued.
By fear of being sued.
So, we're all in this together, and we've got to stand up and take responsibility. And we've got to trust in the life process. The life process the life process wants to be whole and to heal. That is the life desire, if you like. It's not to die. Otherwise, we have to remember we wouldn't be here. Modern medicine is modern. It's new.
We survived for thousands of years without antibiotics.
Yes.
Why?
Yeah. So
we've got to. We need to bring back the old knowledge, like we said, nursing. How to nurse yourself or someone else. How to nurse someone back to health. How to trust in the body. How to also even discern when something has to be done, when something could be done, versus when you need to just leave well enough alone and let your body go through its process. And I've talked about before that one group that we're both in on Facebook, and the amount of young mothers and mothers who are just starting to wake up. It's an anti-vaccine group, and massively huge, like 150,000 people in the group. And every day there are posts by people that I literally am just like, oh my God, what do you do? How can you ask that question? If you don't know the answer to that question, how do you have a child? And because people they've not been given, they've been programmed to just do what the doctor says, take the drugs, don't ask questions, and to not have any common sense, to not even know what questions to ask. There is no concept with a lot of these people of healing in the body, and that there is an instantaneous fear mode they go into. My baby has a fever. Oh my God, I'm in a panic. My baby has a cough. My child has an infection on their thumb, and they go from 0 to 100 into instantaneous panic instantly. And like, but now what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? That's the cycle. Has to be broken.
Yeah. And it's like again, going back to the Industrial Revolution, when families were broken up and taken for the first time, young parents moved away from the grannies and the grandpas who knew what to do. And so that knowledge they lost connection with that knowledge. And that's about the time when the first parenting books were written. So some other authority, medic authority, stepped in to tell people how to parent, how to look after their babies. And we've really, really got to get back that sense. And the other thing that's wrong, the other reason a lot of people, the other place I think where people learn how to look for signs and symptoms is by looking after animals. I mean, if you have animals, you learn, because they don't speak, you learn to observe. And you learn to know when things are okay and when they're not okay. Because the converse, is I've sometimes seen parents with a baby who's like, really seriously ill, and they don't realize, that baby is lying there floppy with the fever, no energy. And the parents are saying, oh, it's grand, it's fine. It's like, not fine. That's not fine. So, yeah, there's a lot of education that needs to be done there. And I don't know, slowly, that's all we can, amongst ourselves and anybody we come in contact with.
Yep, I agree. So I want to take a look. We're going to go take a look. So first off, I'm going to talk about essential oils, because obviously that's, for me, that is one of my things that is my go-to for everything, is various types of essential oils. And the one question I get asked all the time is, okay, I want to get some essential oils. What should I buy? What do I need? What do I need? So I've put together a few little bits here. So we're just going to quickly run through some of these. Bear with me. There we go. Now I've lost Zoom again. There we go. Okay. So my personal, and this is, remember that there are no rules. There's no hard and fast rules. Everyone is going to have their own favorites, if you will, that they are their go-tos. For me, my 4 go-tos are lavender, lemon, peppermint, and chamomile. Now, a little hint on some of this is, basically, you've probably got a lemon in your fridge. You've probably got peppermint and chamomile as far as tea bags go, etc. And a lot of people will have some lavender even just growing in their garden. So in a kind of quasi-emergency, you still, even if you don't have the essential oils, you still have the basics to be able to address a lot of things. So lavender is my number 1. Lavender is, as far as I'm concerned, the king of all essential oils. I use it literally for everything. Quite frankly, I use it for everything. On the physical, we talk about skin, right? It treats burns. It is one of the number 1 things for treating any kind of burn, whether it's a steam burn, a burn with fire, doesn't matter what kind of burn you have. Lavender goes the massive far way to healing that and taking the pain out of it. Okay? Prevents infections. Heals infections. Now, lavender is one of those essential oils that is the broad spectrum of all 4 of the A's, as I call them. It's antibacterial, antiviral, antifungal, and antiseptic. Okay? Now, beyond that, lavender is brilliantly calming. Everyone, if you've ever smelt lavender, like there's that instant feeling of just, you can't help but relax when you smell lavender. So it has a very calming, soothing effect emotionally and mentally and physically when you're dealing with nausea, stomach upsets. Even just sniffing a bit of lavender can sometimes really take the edge off of indigestion and nausea. It is brilliant for bruising, strains, arthritis type pains. Lavender is my literal go-to. The other wonderful thing about lavender, it is one of the only, in my opinion, 2 essential oils that can be used neat on the skin, undiluted. Now, obviously not on children. We don't put undiluted essential oils ever on children. But as an adult, you burn yourself, you can just put a drop of that lavender essential oil on the burn and just drop it directly on there. Okay? It is my all-round oil. It is my all-round healing oil. It does amazing things for the skin. It does amazing things for even in the house, and it's good for pets as well. So my second favorite is peppermint. Peppermint, if you are feeling sick to your stomach, and my children are totally programmed, the first thing, as soon as they start to feel a little bit sick to the stomach, they say, "Mommy, I need a tissue with some peppermint oil, please." And I just take, a little piece of tissue or toilet paper, and I put 1 single drop of peppermint oil, and you never touch it to your skin. All you do is just smell it. And there is an energetic thing that happens throughout your whole body when you smell peppermint. It's like lemon is the same way. It almost like it puts off little tiny firing of electricity throughout your whole mind, your brain, when you smell peppermint and lemon. Peppermint is, like I say, brilliant for nausea. If you're throwing up, if you have indigestion, it really is. And for the most part, all you need to do is just smell it. You don't even, that's the one thing about nausea. If you have the stomach flu, of course, the last thing you want to do is to actually have to take something for your stomach flu. Peppermint, you can use it just literally by itself just to smell it. Really good for reducing fever and inflammation. It is really good for chest colds and sinus problems when you're all congested and heavily congested. It is also one of the most antiseptic. Now, peppermint is very caustic. It must be fully diluted. I recommend most people never more than 1% peppermint oil in any mixture that you're doing. Maybe 2% in certain issues if you're dealing with very specific problems. And peppermint again. How many of you got peppermint growing in the garden? And peppermint is one of those things, you can have a little pot of peppermint growing on a windowsill in your house 12 months a year. You feel a little bit nauseous? Pull a leaf off, just chew on it. Just chew on it. And one of the good things about peppermint is, because peppermint is such an inexpensive essential oil, most peppermint candies still have peppermint oil in them. So if you're out and about and you start feeling a little upset and a little nauseous and a little overwhelmed, get yourself a peppermint candy and just pop it in your mouth. A lot of times, that's that feeling you get, that, ooh, I feel better. Okay, lemon. Lemon is the same thing with peppermint. When you smell lemon oil, it's like your eyes brighten up, even your hair tingles, as I always joke about. It is extremely antibiotic and antiseptic. It will kill warts, no matter what kind of wart you have. Lemon oil, a little tiny bit, directly on the wart, and put a little plaster or a Band-Aid over top of it. A week of doing that, that wart's gone, right down to the root. Again, it's great for nausea. It is an amazing wake up, uplifting. I don't know anyone who can smell lemon oil and not actually smile after you smell it. It just has that instantaneous effect. And it is something that you can, as an immune booster, you can actually add it to a ton of stuff. And chamomile. And there's multiple different kinds of chamomile. As most of you guys know who know me and my products that I make, I use the Moroccan chamomile because I'm completely addicted to it. Chamomile is another one, much like lavender. It is extremely calming. Anxiety kind of just falls away when you smell chamomile. It calms not just your emotional self, it really does an amazing thing with even the mental. It calms the mind. It helps to bring it back down and slow it down. Any kind of skin irritation, whether it is poison ivy or an irritation from the soaps that's ever happened, whether it's cuts or scrapes, anything, it is mosquito bites. It is very, very, very soothing and brilliant for migraines and really good for muscle spasms. So there's my favorite pick of the 4, number 1. Okay, that I cannot, even when I travel, those go with me anywhere I go, even if it's just to the supermarket. Little tiny bottles in my purse. So I did the basics and the secondary level. So lavender, peppermint, lemon, chamomile. I throw in there with the basics that everyone needs is oil of oregano. Oil of oregano kills everything. You have a cold, it'll wipe it out. If you have any kind of an infection, if you have good quality oil of oregano, it will take care of it. Now, the other thing is oregano is just really, really good for opening up the sinuses when you're dealing with congestion. It is really good for upset stomachs. And it is extremely antifungal as well. So it's also really good if you're dealing with things like athlete's foot. It's when I'm dealing with sick, when the kids come down and they're starting to get sick, if I'm starting to get sick, the first thing that gets pulled out is the dreaded oil of oregano because it tastes horrible. It's very hot. And eucalyptus oil. And we all know eucalyptus oil. It's one of those ones. Same thing. You know what? When you're really heavy congested, there is nothing that beats putting a drop of eucalyptus oil in a steaming bowl of water, put the towel over your head, and breathe in the steam. It just instantaneously opens up everything. Now, my second level choice, geranium. Geranium is another one of those. It is, for me, besides the fact that it smells really good, it is a very beautiful, relaxing scent that really kind of gets you, in many ways, hormonally. Geranium is exceptionally good for your skin. Any problem with your skin, whether it's new scars, old scars, dry skin, oily skin, acne skin, cuts, bruises, scrapes, it doesn't matter. Geranium is brilliant for it. Frankincense. Anyone who's done any research with essential oils, frankincense is one of the ones that's really well talked about, curing cancer with frankincense oil. This is one of those oils, you know, the three wise men in the Bible, what did they have? Frankincense and myrrh. And frankincense was that highly valued that it was on par with gold when it came to international trade. Thyme oil is another one, and I say thyme and rosemary. Thyme, rosemary, and oregano and the eucalyptus are my cold, flu, chest, snotty nose, sore throats. Those are my four that are my go-tos. Thyme is highly antiseptic as well. Now, you've got to be careful with it. It needs to be properly diluted. No more than a 1% dilution. Rosemary is brilliant for the skin, for the hair. It's great for the respiratory tract. Now, the caution with rosemary is anyone who has a history of epilepsy, you shouldn't use rosemary because it can, if someone does have triggers to seizures, rosemary oil can trigger seizures. It has been known to do that and has been used to actually do that since ancient times. But yeah, it's also brilliant for your hair and your skin. Rose. If you can afford it, rose is the most expensive essential oil on the market. Right now, a liter of rose damascena goes for about $9,500 a liter. $9,500, sorry, 9,500 euros a liter, sorry. The thing about rose is, it's another one of those essential oils that is massively effective on all our layers at once, if you will. The emotional, the mental, the physical, and I like to call it even on the spiritual level, on that consciousness level. Rose is one of the oils that is incredibly uplifting, but also very calming. It has a very, very fine balance point. It is extremely healing, and it's extremely healing, I find, when you're dealing with people who have long-term emotional issues. It's kind of like one of those oils, like Anne, when we talked about, you know, you have to go back and find the stuff that kind of happened in the childhood. Rose is one of those oils that I find really helps support that kind of emotional healing. And last but not least is clary sage. Clary sage is the knockout drug in the essential oil world. You can't be anxious and you can't have anxiety or depression when you're sniffing clary sage. And you should never drive a car or operate heavy equipment when you're using clary sage because it literally is that powerful. But it is a broad spectrum one. It has a wonderful relaxing smell, and used in small doses, it is really, really brilliant for your skin as well and for all over health. So we're going to stop that right there for a second. When you're dealing with essential oils, it is very, very important to remember dilution. I have spoken to so many people who, I mean, we've shared ridiculous stories. I put up a post on Facebook this morning about oil of oregano. Someone just put a really great infographic up about oil of oregano. And then the stories come out going, yeah, but you know what? Make sure you don't put it in your neti pot by itself because it's not going to be very pleasant. So you need to understand. So I have a kind of a rule of thumb, and these are my rules of thumb. This is the stuff that I've come up with over many, many years of working with essential oils. When you're dealing with the herbs and the spices, you really should never use more than 1% of a dilution. So in other words, if you've got a 100 ml bottle of oil, you would add no more than 1 ml of a herb or a spice essential oil to that, unless you're treating something that is chronic. Not chronic, acute, where you have an issue that must be dealt with absolutely right now, and you know what you're doing. Things like peppermint and eucalyptus, they're very, very caustic. If you get those on your skin by itself straight, it will burn your skin. So they're not to be played with. I shouldn't say they're not to be played with. They're to be treated with respect. A lot of people come with this whole thing, oh, they're just peppermint, it's just herb, and they'll start spraying it around everywhere. You have to know what you're doing. It's not difficult, it just means respecting the certain rules. So, herbs and spices, in that category, no more than 1%. When you're dealing with the citruses or the woods, I always say you should stick within the 2 to 3% tops. And citrus oils, you never ever apply to your skin if you're going anywhere out in the sun within 5 hours. And it's that's the terrible conundrum of like lemon and bergamot and mandarin essential oil, because they're so revivifying and they just make you feel so up. So they're awesome for the morning as long as you're staying in the house. All citrus oils are phototoxic, and you can get really, really nasty reactions on your skin if you go out in the sun. And it's not a matter of like, oh, I'm going to wait a half an hour. No, it's a matter of you don't go out in the sun for at least 3 or 4 hours after applying them to your skin. And flower essential oils, for the most part, 4% dilution is no problem. Even 5%, especially if you're making your own perfume, is not a problem. But if you just remember that you have respect for the essential oils you're working with. This is where medicine came from. A lot of the allopathic medicines started off as being herbs and spices that they were designed from. So you need to have respect for them and understand that you can't just start tossing them around willy-nilly. A little bit of research. And base oils. Your essential oils are going to be absolutely fantastic, but if you put them into a crap base oil, you just wasted it. Right? If you use it into, for example, something that's got mineral oil in it, and a lot of people will make that mistake. They buy something not realizing that it's not pure argan oil or it's not pure avocado oil. It's got mineral oil mixed into it. As soon as you add your essential oils to that, you've lost pretty much all of the medicinal value. The essential instantly disappears. So good quality base oils are absolutely worth the money to have. And a good oil will go a long, long way. So guys, do you have any questions about the essential oils part here? You know what, Mel, as far as books, there are a shit ton of books. This is one of, you'll see this. This is one of my old favorites. She's been traveling around with me, as you can see, for many, many years. And that's The Fragrant Pharmacy by Valoran N. Wormwood. Just because she's got lots of this in the back, she does really, really big on doing all kinds of different charts. So you can look up all different aspects to the oils and what they can be used for, etc., which is really handy. But there's tons of essential oil books. And you need to be, yeah, this will be posted, Penny, this will be posted in RTS, absolutely, tomorrow morning. Research. If you're not sure, here's a fun little thing for you. If you're going to go to the store, let's say tomorrow you're going to go to the store and you're going to buy yourself 2 bottles of essential oil. That's your treat for yourself. I'm going to buy 2 bottles. And you go and most stores you can have something where they'll have like testers where you can smell them. So because my number 1 rule is if you don't like the way the essential oil smells, it's not going to work for you. Because that's the mental blockage. I cannot work, and Deb, you're going to laugh. I can't stand the smell of yang yang. Can't stand it. Literally. And I have a bottle. therapeutic grade yang oil, and I have one product that has maybe 2 drops in it because I can't stand the smell. So therefore, I literally can't make products with that in there because it doesn't sit well with me. Same thing with grapefruit oil. Grapefruit oil, I can't stand the smell of it. I can't use it. So it does not matter how wonderful the oil is. If you don't like the smell, it's not going to work for you because you're going to have like the instantaneous mental block. And your smell receptors are very, very smart. Maybe there's a reason why you don't like the smell as far as your overall health or sensitivities that you could have. But here, here's your experiment. Go buy 2 oils. Go buy 1 oil. And then go to your search bar and type in the name of the oil, lavender essential oil, medical studies, scientific studies. And go take a look. And take a look at some of the literature that comes up for your essential oil that you've picked. You'll learn a lot. Even if you can't read the hardcore medical study, you'll get the basic points. You'll get the basic points of like, oh, look at that. Lavender essential oil kills 98% of the flu virus on contact instantly. Same thing with eucalyptus oil, right? So books are wonderful, and I love having books, but we also have a whole internet of lots and lots of information. So you don't need to be tied down to just a specific book. And there's lots of great little booklets you can pick up. Like a lot of the companies, a lot of essential oil companies will have like a little booklet with your stuff that you can go in and just read a couple sentences just to get a feel for it. And don't deny yourself the experimentation progress and listening to your gut. Because if you smell something, let's say, pick one, let's say it's peppermint oil, and you smell it and you really, really like it, and all of a sudden you get something comes up. Let's say you have a headache. Let's say you have a sore throat. Let's say anything happens and your mind goes, ooh, peppermint oil. Listen to that. That's your kind of your inner gut is telling you, hey, this is going to work for this. And there's a lot of I've been experimenting with stuff like that for years and years and years. And there's a lot of essential oils that I discovered had certain attributes that are not written about in books because I listened to my own gut and was just like, you know what? I know this is going to work for this problem, so I'm going to use it. So essential oils you can use multiple ways. You can apply them topically, right? And that's where I talk about dilution. You never apply an essential oil on your skin directly unless it's diluted. You can use it, like I said, you can put a drop on a tissue and literally just inhale the fragrance. You can get a diffuser, or one of the most brilliant things that are coming up now is we have so much choice in diffusers now. You can get all kinds. It doesn't want like the good old days where all you had was a candle and a little bowl on top, and that's your only choice. Now there's tons of different types of diffusers. So you can put, a drop or two with essential oils. Less is more. A lot of people fall into that whole thing of like, well, if 2 drops is good, then 10 drops must be great. It doesn't work that way. So less is more. You only need a little bit. And when you're buying essential oils, one thing to know, there's a lot of name brand marketing companies out there. Pyramid scheme, most of them. And they market themselves as being all that and a bag of chips. There's no such thing as therapeutic grade essential oils. The actual term therapeutic grade doesn't exist. That is a marketing tool. There is no governmental body. There is no association of aromatherapists or chemists anywhere in the world that grades essential oils and creates something called a therapeutic grade. It doesn't exist. Basically, all it means is that it's pure. So do not be conned by the sales pitch. You can get some excellent essential oils that aren't that expensive. You don't need to absolutely pay for a bomb. The thing you want to know is you want them to be steam distilled with the exception of a few of the flowers. So rose, jasmine, neroli, a lot of times those come as absolutes. This is not truly an essential oil or an absolute, which means they are distilled through alcohol, an evaporation process. And that's because they're so expensive to steam distill, because you need literally metric tons of flowers to produce 1 liter of oil, which is why rose oil is so expensive. Steam distilled, you don't want any solvents involved. And obviously, if you can get organic, great. But you know what? Most herbs don't require pesticides. Most herbs don't require pesticides because the nature of herbs is that they keep the pests away all by themselves. I kind of laugh at the whole thing about organic lavender because no bugs are going to attack lavender. Unless there's an actual serious disease blight, bugs don't go after lavender. It's not one of the things that they do. It's not one of the things that they like. That's why we put lavender. That's why we put little lavender sachets around our house to keep the moths and the bugs away. So make sure that your product is pure. Make sure that it is steam distilled. Don't fall for the marketing schemes. Don't fall for the marketing schemes. There are a lot of some really, really good, relatively inexpensive brands out there where you can get stuff. Now, rose is always going to be expensive, regardless of who you buy it from. But things like our basics that we're talking about, lavender, peppermint, lemon, chamomile. Chamomile German is a little more expensive. These, yeah, oregano, thyme, exactly. They're inexpensive. You can definitely pick them up and for a good price. And they're relatively easily distilled. Therefore, it's very rare that you're going to get a synthetic. Because a synthetic almost costs more to make than it would be just to distill the damn essential oil itself. So, Charlotte, that is one of the areas that I want to get into. That is one of my things, is we have some wild herbs that grow all over Gozo, and I want to get a distiller, and I want to start distilling my own herbs. As of yet, I have not done that. So I can't really tell you about how much you need. Again, it varies. And some of the variation you get in price for the more expensive essential oils is the amount of bulk that's used to make it. So, for example, you have grades of essential oil. So, A grade rose oil might be $200 for 10 mils. But that A grade of rose oil, they used X many pounds of petals to produce it. And then you have B grade where they use less. So if this used 100 pounds of petals, this one used 75 pounds of petals. So it's a step down in grade. It's not quite as concentrated. You have C grade where they only use maybe 50 pounds of petals. So this is one of those things just to know. But again, the grading really comes into power more when you talk about the very expensive essential oils like rose, like jasmine, like sandalwood, etc. Oh, Sheila, I'm jealous of you. I so want a distiller. I keep looking at them online. I look on eBay at the little tiny ones that you can get that just kind of can sit on a counter. I'm like, one of these days I will have one of those. So any other questions about stuff like that? Jose, Roman, German, chamomile Roman, chamomile German, and Moroccan chamomile, they all have a lot of similarities. They have slight differences. There are slight differences. There are certain things are better, a little more suited to one than another. So, and it's going to depend. You have to play around with them a little bit, and it takes a little bit of just research. There are various differences. Yeah, I've been telling Nick to make me a distiller for a long time. We just haven't gotten around to it yet. Okay, so, and do you want to jump into the homeopathy aspect of this? Because that is a major one. This is, I'm learning. I didn't bring my kit. Damn it, I'm supposed to have my kit out here to show everyone. I don't know where it's gone to.
Okie dokie. Okie dokie. Well, it looks like we'll all be hearing a lot more about homeopathy. And I know there's a lot of confusion out there it is confusing. I mean, a lot of people can't even say the word and it puts people off. So again, apologies if this is really obvious for many of you.
Yep, we can see it.
You got it, yeah?
Yep.
Okay, so the word homeopathy comes from two Greek words and it means similar suffering. So the notion is that homeopathy is a system. It's a system, a complete system of medicine based on several principles, but the main principle is that if something can cause sickness, it can also cure it. One of the examples usually given is onion fumes can make your eyes water. So onion, Allium cepa, can be used to treat a cold with watery eyes. We often find actually the use of the homeopathic principle accidentally. The allopaths use it. They don't probably know why they're using it, but it does happen. For instance, the use of amphetamines to treat hyperactivity in children, that is an application of the law of similars. Which
pure
is
homeopathy right there.
yeah. And you'll find, I mean, you could dispute that this is true, but that radiation can cause cancer and allopaths do use it to a certain extent to cure it also. Yep. So that principle itself does not make homeopathy, it is how it's applied. But it is one of the base principles of homeopathy. Now, Samuel Hahnemann, when he came across this principle, was probably spoken about by Paracelsus, and that's probably where Hahnemann picked it up in the 1800s. Now, he realized that he started experimenting with the principle and realized that it probably did work, but a lot of the things that make you sick are also very poisonous. So the second principle of homeopathy is to use the smallest possible dose. So one of the most common homeopathic remedies is arsenic, for instance, Arsenicum album. It's used to treat all sorts of conditions, but primarily kind of food poisoning. Getting sick after eating bad food is a big arsenicum symptom. So, however, none of us want to take arsenic in a material dose. So that led to the preparation of the homeopathic remedy, which is quite unique. And nobody's quite sure where Hahnemann came across this method. A homeopathic remedy is prepared by a series of dilutions. It's not a straight serial dilution. Because after a period of time, if you keep diluting, the solution loses any potency. It loses any effect. So what happens with the homeopathic medicine is there's a dilution followed by a period of succussion. And succussion is simply the banging, strong banging of the solution. Now, you can look up, we're beginning for, obviously, because homeopathy doesn't make money, no great deal of research has been put into figuring out why this happens the way it happens. But I think now we'll find out a lot more about, exactly what happens during the phase of succussion. And I'll post a few links when you put the article up, Danny, or the thing, so people can read more about it if they want to. But this, essentially, if you go into your shop and look for a homeopathic remedy, there's two potencies that you're going to see. One is an X potency, and that stands for a dilution. X is 10, a dilution in Roman numerals, a dilution of 1 in 10. The X potencies, most of the common X potencies, you'd normally be looking at 6, 9, or 12. they still have molecules of the original substance in them. And so they're very good for microdosing with minerals or for organ support. We don't use them much in classical homeopathy, but they have, they have their uses. The C potencies stand for a dilution of 1 in 100. And they're the potencies you'll most normally see if you go and look for a remedy in your whole food shop to treat first aid situations or acute disease. And the numbers that you'll see beside them will normally be a 6C and a 30C, because they're the ones that you can buy in shops. Homeopaths will often use very, very much higher dilutions. And again, conversely, in homeopathy, the higher the dilution, the stronger, in a way, the remedy. So a very, very high dilution affects all levels of the person, right back into your ancestry to a certain extent. And these dilutions are not normally available over the counter. And if anyone's wondering, about to 12C or 24X, and this is the number beyond which they assume that not a single molecule of the original substance is left in the solution. So if you take a 30C remedy or a 24X or anything above that, there isn't even a single molecule of the original substance. And of course, homeopathy is hammered for this by the skeptics, the septics, as we call them, because they reckon there's nothing in it. It's simply they can find no material substance in the remedy, so they say that it's nothing but placebo.
And yet, then the FDA turns around and says, "Oh no, it contains arsenic. It's poisonous."
Yeah.
Okay, wait, is it a placebo and it is empty? Mm-hmm. Or is it toxic? Yeah. And both those statements have been made by the FDA in the last 10 years.
Oh, yeah. And there'll be a lot more in the next few weeks, I'd say, following on from, the rise of the use of homeopathy. We'll see a bash for sure. So another question. Okay, so you go and you get the stuff, and what do you do with it? So how to dose yourself with homeopathy? You only have to take one pill and put it into a glass of water, 30 mils or a fluid ounce of water. One pill will inform the water in that glass of the energy pattern that it's carrying. You stir the glass well and take a teaspoon. Now, what the remedy does, when you feed back, two similar diseases cannot and do not in nature coexist in the body at the same time. So what you're doing is you're feeding back to the body an energy pattern that is similar but stronger than the pattern that the body is already holding or producing. So because the two cannot coexist, there's a reaction. This stimulates the immune response into action. It's like the homeopathic remedy is a drain rod. Imagine that your energy, your immune response is like a drainage system, and that's blocked. So you give a dose, and that is like poking the blockage with a drain rod, right? So you stop and wait. Once you've done that, you just wait for the energy to flow and for a response to take place. If the response starts to wear off, then you take another dose. But before you take the second dose, you give the glass a good stir again. So you're giving it a slightly higher dose. Every time you agitate the dose, like by thumping it or by stirring it, you are raising the strength, raising the potency slightly. So one bottle of pills could treat an entire village, if you use it like this.
For a year, almost.
It's an extremely cost-effective system of medicine. Yada, yada, They don't want it out there.
Yeah, which is why they don't want anyone to have it out there, because it's really cheap.
It's really cheap. Yeah, it's really, really cheap. So I'm not going to give you an awful long list of stuff to take, because it takes a little while. If you've never used homeopathy, it takes a little while to get into it. And I recommend that people start by using first aid remedies. They always work, because it's something almost everybody responds the same way when something happens outside of you. When you go into treating acute stuff, it gets a little bit more complicated, because there are several different potentials for each situation. Now, the number one remedy that everybody should have, in my opinion, is arnica for physical injury. Arnica is absolutely extraordinary. I broke a bone. I was doing first aid one time.
Hold on one second, Anne. Sheila, can you mute yourself? I can't mute you, and we're getting feedback. So thank you. Sorry, go ahead, Anne.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I was doing first aid one time, and I was on an ambulance. This girl had knocked herself unconscious, and I'd given her arnica, and she came, she'd come back to consciousness. The ambulance arrived. She was on the ambulance, and I was just on the ambulance with her, giving them arnica to give to her on the way to hospital. I jumped off the ambulance holding the arnica and broke a bone in my foot. I heard the snap and I knew that was it. The bone was broken. So I was too late to kind of flag down the ambulance and hitch her to hospital. So I took a dose straight away and went and sat down, and it was the most extraordinary feeling. I've broken lots of bones, horses and all that stuff. And this was the most extraordinary feeling. I knew there was something wrong. I could feel my body doing something, but there was no pain. There was no pain at all. I kept the leg still and I kept it elevated, and it was just amazing. Eventually, after a few hours, I drove myself to hospital, and when I went in, they did x-ray it. And they said, well, we're not going to set it now because it's going to swell like anything and you're going to need a lot of painkillers. Come back in 3 days. I didn't need any painkillers. Every time I felt the pain coming, if I felt the pain starting, I took another dose. But only when I felt the pain, when I felt the wearing off of the original dose, I took another dose. And that bone healed perfectly and really quickly. I didn't have to be cast. They couldn't believe it when I went back to the hospital. It was like, how come it isn't swollen? How come it isn't this and that? And that was because I had arnica immediately and instantly. So I would say to everyone that you should travel around with that in your bag, in your car, anywhere you go. And it deals with, it can also deal with the shock of injury, but we have another one for that as well, and I'll talk about that in a tick. So as soon as an injury happens, take arnica and then figure out if you need to add anything else to it. If there's a nerve injury, if the injury is to a part that is rich in nerves, like the fingers, the funny bone, anywhere like that, add hypericum to the mix. Hypericum perforatum. It's incredible. Again, it's miraculous. If you've ever closed your hands, your fingers in a door, oh my God. And hypericum's incredible. If there is a spinal injury, absolutely give hypericum straight away. Arnica and hypericum, and keep going. Hypericum will regrow damaged nerves. It's absolutely extraordinary stuff. If there's a bone injury, like a fracture, when it's almost universally, when you break a bone, you don't want to move it. Any situation where you absolutely do not want to move something, you cannot move. Bryonia is the remedy to take. So you would arnica and add in as well. If the injury involves a cut, add in calendula. Calendula is it's a homeopathic antiseptic. You can get calendula in a tincture, in a liquid form. So you can also use it to bathe sores. It's been used on diabetic ulcers, which are very, very difficult to heal. It's, you know, you can heal all kinds of really serious septic situations with calendula, both internally and topically. Let me see. You can also, I didn't say that about arnica, you can apply arnica topically, but never to broken skin.
Nope.
It aggravates broken skin. Eye injury, aconite. Aconite is the arnica of the eye. So whenever there's been an injury to an eye, give aconite. Let me see. What else do I need to say about that? It's really a matter of trying. If you've never used homeopathy,
Yep.
feel your way into it by working with these very straightforward first aid remedies that will always work. They'll absolutely always work. Oh yeah, arnica. Arnica, I just want to say as well, for anyone who has dental work done, has extractions particularly, arnica will stop excessive bleeding or dry socket or anything like that. I have a cousin who teaches dentistry, and she was very, kind of poo-poo about homeopathy in the beginning. And she started using arnica, and she ended up writing a paper on it. It really, really works brilliantly for that.
I think arnica is the number. Everyone should go out tomorrow, if you can, go buy a bottle of 30C arnica, and you will be just, before I knew anything about homeopathy, back when my eldest son was really, really little, I had a friend visiting from Germany, and the Germans are very big on homeopathy. And her little one was the same age as Gabriel, fell down, bumped his head, and she whipped out the thing of arnica and gave it, and I was memorable. I was like, wow, what is it? Like, what is it doing? She goes, this is, in her broken English, this is homeopathy, da, 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 da. And she gave me the bottle when she left. And that bottle went everywhere with me. And I had no understanding of homeopathy at all. It was 15 years before I'd even done any after that I did any research on it. Arnica, 30C, I swear by it. And I smashed my knee so badly on last Friday. I told Anne, it's like, I did some serious damage. It's one of those where you sit there and you go, oh, this is going to be so bad. And I got home and I took the arnica right away, and I have a arnica cream. I was meant to have it out here too to show everyone. It's called Tromiel, which is arnica and hypericum, I believe, is in it too. And it's a cream that you apply topically. Again, not to open wounds, only to bruising, strains, sprains. I never even got a bruise. It never even bruised.
Yeah.
Stuff's amazing.
It is amazing. In fact, the only thing I would caution a little bit about using arnica is that you can feel better than you actually are.
Yes.
Yes. So the body produces inflammation for a reason, pain and inflammation also. It's to stop you using something. So just be aware of that, take it easy. Don't get up and run on your broken legs.
Yeah.
Now, something that homeopathy can do that allopathic medicine absolutely can't do, and that is treat shock. Shock is one of the biggest killers in trauma, because what happens when you have a serious physical trauma is the body goes into kind of stasis for a little while it figures out what's going on. You have to figure out, did I lose a leg? Have I got me, where's everything? So the body puts everything on pause while it does this kind of assessment to see what the heck is going on. But with a lot of people, this phase, they don't pass on into healing. They stay stuck in the shock. And aconite 30 is an absolutely brilliant remedy. So I would always give that if in serious physical trauma situations, as well as for the psychic effects of if you've been involved in an accident but not actually hurt, if you've been shocked in any way by witnessing something, aconite is brilliant, absolutely brilliant thing to take. And the other thing that you should have in your purse is a rescue remedy of some sort.
Box rescue remedy.
Yeah. Now, Batch, Dr. Batch, he was Welsh, and so his name is pronounced Batch, unfortunately, not Bach.
I'm sorry. See, I didn't know that.
I know. Most people call it Bach. It's Batch. He was a homeopath by training. He produced the bowel nosodes. That guy was way ahead of his time. He did bowel nosodes as well. And then he developed a system of treatment with flower essences. Now an essence is a much more gentle thing than a homeopathic remedy. You simply place the flower in water, and the flower informs the water of its healing properties. And Batch produced this combination flower essence, which is called Rescue Remedy, or at least it was put together as Rescue Remedy. The one that I have up there says 5-flower remedy, and that is made by a company called Healing Herbs. I much prefer it to the better known Rescue Remedy produced by Nelson's. And there's a whole load of industrial espionage behind that. But if you can find the 5-flower from Healing Herbs, it's absolutely amazing stuff. So again, for any situation, while you figure out what the heck is going on and what to do, take the Rescue Remedy. So any kind of traumatic situation, for instance, if you're for people, who were affected by the fires in California, or, any kind of natural disaster, any kind of situation that is rocking people, Rescue Remedy all around. It's brilliant.
Yeah. Especially for children.
Yeah.
Rescue Remedy for children, because children, they fall down, they hurt themselves. And sometimes you can tell they get that cry that it's not even the pain. It's the, I'm so upset that I've hurt myself. It's a shock reaction to what has happened to them. Mm-hmm. The Rescue Remedy, it just takes everything right back in and just brings them to a much more, almost instantly calm place, where then you can deal with the first aid aspect, that if first aid has to be given. But yeah, and even when they're sick, I've also found with my kids, sometimes if they're really, really sick and they've got a fever and they're kind of delirious, the Bach Rescue Remedy really works.
Yes, it alleviates fear.
Yes.
And that's one of the things that children will pick up fear. If a child has to go to hospital, for instance, a hospital is full of fear in the collective. So sensitive children will pick that up. And you don't want them feeling that when they're trying to heal themselves. So flower essences have traditionally been preserved in brandy. Again, that bottle is actually what's known as a stock bottle. It's a good idea to go and get, where's my camera? Here.
There's your camera.
It's a good idea to get yourself another little 15 ml bottle and you can make up dosage bottles from that stock bottle. Put about 10 drops from the original, a little dropper bottle like this, and carry this one around in your handbag. And again, the stock bottle will last you for ages and ages and ages. So,
and unlike allopathic medicine, they don't go bad.
No, they don't go bad. We have to put expiry dates on the stuff. I make essences as well. I have a Rescue Remedy in my kit, but we don't ship to the US. So I know a lot of people here are listening from there.
But we're going to work on that. We're going to figure out a way to get around that.
Yeah, we will. So I can't see the chat. I don't know where the chat is. I can't even do.
If you go to the view options and click exit full screen.
Okay. Well, maybe I'll just, if you could tell me, my mouse is just not doing anything.
Your mouse is just decided. Everyone's agreeing. Everyone loves arnica. Everyone's talking about Rescue Remedy. There was a question. Oh crap! Hold on. I'm gonna have to scroll back up to try and find the question. Mel asked, my cat has gingivitis and the vet says she needs an operation. What can I use to treat her, or should she have the operation? Now, do you mean by gingivitis, do you mean, because this vets piss me off, are her teeth infected? If that, because that's something that they throw words like gingivitis around, and it doesn't necessarily mean gingivitis. It just means that they've got gum infections going on, or the teeth are rotting. They say she needs 2 teeth pulled out. Gums are red, no infection.
Well, I'd be inclined to have a go at that with, you know, changing diet. I mean, this is a whole other thing in veterinary medicine now, changing over to raw food, much healthier diets. And I mean, my little bollocks there has only got an eye due to homeopathy. The vet said it had to come out because he had a very bad injury, but homeopathy saved it. He's got perfect sight now. So yeah, I would give that a go with natural medicine. The less messing around you do, essentially, the better.
Yep.
So just a couple of other things.
Sorry, and Becky wanted to know if there's anything good for improving the lungs.
Oh God, aye. Now, to go back to have I got?
Okay, you go. Now you're on the hypericum. No.
Yeah. No, it was on the very first thing that I put up. It was the difference between acute and chronic situations, right?
Yeah.
Remember?
Yep.
So we can easily treat acute situations using home remedies. Now, if it's a chronic situation, there are more options. There are many options with homeopathy, but that you have to narrow down. There's hundreds of potential remedies that you just need to narrow down to find the exact fit. Because remember, it's treating with similars. So we have to find a substance that can cause that exact pattern of symptoms. So yes, the answer A, yes, of course, there are things, but there's not one thing, there's many potentials. And, you know, perhaps we could talk about that privately if you want, and I might be able to narrow things down a little bit. Other things to look at, tissue salts. These are microdoses of 12 essential inorganic mineral salts. They are, in fact, a homeopathic version of supplementation, of supplements. They're usually, I have some up there, they're usually in a, like 6x potency. They are apparently what's left after a body is cremated. There are 12 minerals, essential minerals left. And these are what Schussler, the fellow who came up with the tissue salts, Schussler wanted to simplify homeopathy. And he decided on these 12 cell constituents. And he reckoned that if you had them in balance, that everything else would sort itself out. Now, I'm no expert on them. Mark O'Sullivan knows, he teaches about them, and he will do something with us at some point.
Very soon, we're going to have Mark O'Sullivan on to talk specifically about tissue salts.
Yeah. You can buy them. You can go online and read up on them. I have a very good link, which I'll also drop in for people to read up on them themselves, because they're simple to use. It's just not something, it's not my area. My own particular area is gem essences. That's what I work in most particularly. They affect behaviors. I work with children with behavioral problems and things like that. So flower and gem essences have a wide range of action. There are many, many different brands. They are very easy to use. They're non-toxic. They're not addictive. You can use them for mood swings, anxiety, behavioral problems. You can use them to deprogram, to let go of fears, to change behaviors, all sorts of things like that. And I'm just putting them in there as something you might hear about. They're very, very useful, and again, worth looking at.
And Anne's crystal essences are one of the ingredients that goes into my Easy Emergency Essences kit. So Charlotte, who loves the emergency essences, part of the essences are those Anne's crystal essences. I have a bunch of them now, and I absolutely love them. And when Anne came to visit, she gave Logan, who is my kind of sort of special dude, and gave him the children's kit. And he still to this day will go to it if he's got a problem, or even if his brother has a problem, and he will go, okay, well, let's see which one we want to use. And he will pull it out, and he'll put his drops into the water, and we have them in spray bottles so they can spray them in their bed at night. Kale tonight was having a bad night because we got thunderstorms kind of going on around, and he got his No Fear one, and he sprayed his teddy bear with it, and he sprayed his pillow with it and himself with it. So I cannot recommend them highly enough. They're just phenomenal stuff.
Thanks. So just 2 resources for first aid homeopathy that I find really good that you can get online. And I have this kit here. Helios is one of my favorite pharmacies. The pharma industry, as we know, fuckers, are busy buying up homeopathic pharmacies. So they've bought several of the ones in continental Europe. Helios is a really good pharmacy. They everybody who works there is a homeopath. They know what they're doing, and they do it really carefully and well. And they produce this kit, this Helios first aid kit, which has a little booklet, tells you what everything does, and it's like you can see, it's really small. You can stick it in your handbag. You can travel with it anywhere, and you have what you need to take care of first aid. This book, The Complete Homeopathy Handbook by Miranda Castro, is one of the best, and I think it is the best book on the market at the moment for learning how to do first aid stuff. There's an excellent online group as well. It's run by a girl called Mary Aspinwall. I think there's 20,000 people in that group at the moment.
I think there's more than 20,000 now.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. I mean, you see, as people move away from vaccination, they have to, there's like, oh my God, now what am I going to do? If I'm not going to go the medical route, I'm going to have to do something. So people are learning to use homeopathy and other things, of course. But homeopathy is it is a complete system of medicine. So you can treat anything from first aid, acute stuff, right up to serious constitutional stuff with homeopathy. And that's one of the reasons why our friends don't like it so much. Okay.
The Helios first aid kit is a must-have. I have had one of those kits. I was given one about 6 years ago by a friend of mine, and it traveled all over the world with me. And then Anne brought me a new one when she came to Gozo. That kit is my first stop for everything. And you get, is it like 12 different ones in there, I'd say? 12?
No, it's more.
I think it's got to be more than that, 16?
Yeah, it's more than that again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 18. 18.
They're just little tiny bottles, just little teeny wee ones. They're brilliant. Absolutely. And if you've got little kids running around, I swear they're my go-to for almost everything. It is a brilliant, and the little book, it doesn't overwhelm you with information. It just gives you, like, here's your arnica, here's some of your descriptions, and then there's another one which is really good, is it gives you the symptoms, and it will help you define the symptoms. It's not just a sore throat. It'll be sore throat with a fever, a sore throat with a cough, a sore throat. It's really, really well put together. Well, I'm glad it worked, Charlotte. There we go. Oh, Mel, did they do a pet one too? An actual pet kit? Oh, I may have to get that one. I may have.
Yeah, there's There's a big movement now. The vets are actually faster to embrace alternative medicine than the regular doctors. They've been noticing that vaccination has had a detrimental effect on animals, and they're pulling back on a whole load of that stuff now. Thank goodness.
At least the thinking ones are. Now maybe they can influence the actual pediatricians.
Yeah, we'll see. But yeah, there are lots of homeopathic kits coming out now, and special remedies for animals.
Awesome.
Is there any other questions I missed there? Somebody said something about the lymph system.
I didn't see.
Yeah. Well, like I said, with homeopathy, there are lots of different remedies that work on the system. You would possibly be better going for, in general terms, going for something herbal, or else the thing about, and I hope this isn't confusing people, but with homeopathy, we have to find the substance that is most similar, that is capable of producing symptoms most similar to the ones that you yourself have at this time. So there are any number. Oh, I'm standing on a repertory. Hang on a second. Ugh. You see that book? That is an old-fashioned repertory. And this is full of, I look this book up when anybody gives me, is looking for stitching pain. There's about half a gazillion remedies in here. So it's a matter of narrowing things down. And that's why I'm a little bit, it sounds like I'm a bit evasive when I say, well, you could take this or that, but that's the thing. Apart from the first aid remedies, there are many options with other situations. They can be narrowed down, but you need more information. Okay, so the other thing I've been really impressed, personally, really impressed by the Gans patches.
How do we deal with pain?
Yeah, and I'd love John to say a bit about them, because I've tried them myself. I've made Gans, the CO2 and zinc Gans, just to see what would happen. And I've gone, wow, these things really do work, So, John.
There he is.
Hi, everybody. Well, the Gans, I'm not going to get into how to make it. I'm not getting into how to use it. I'm just going to explain a little bit of the observational science background behind it. And what was found out while they were working with this substance is the actual mechanism of pain, the actual construction of pain. And what they found out was that pain is a signal from your brain that gets transferred down a nerve that can't get delivered. And it gets reflected back, and your brain goes, oh, no, and we interpret that as pain. What the CO2 Gans will do, this stuff, what it will do is it will allow a place for that signal to go, so it doesn't get reflected back to your brain. This has two effects. One is the pain's gone. The second one is it triggers the healing centers between the emotional body and the physical, or the energetic body and the physical body. And the physical body realizes, whoa, wait a minute, there's something missing, there's something wrong, and it immediately focuses on that area in a healing response. The concept of the energetic body, if anybody's lost a limb and they can still feel their fingers, what they're feeling is the energetic body there. And CO2 Gans is amazingly effective at absorbing those errant signals. Now, depending upon how you make it, how you treat it, your emotional state while you make it, your emotional state while you work with it, really matters. and you will have various, sometimes it'll work really good, sometimes it won't work really good. Chances are it's an emotional cause, whether it works or not, because the vast majority of autoimmune diseases out there are emotionally based. And that's another thing that they found in this research is cancers, Lou Gehrig's, Alzheimer's, any of the autoimmune systems where your body's attacking itself, it's an emotional thing. You deal with the emotion that created it, and the condition simply goes away. The CO2 Gans, when you make it, you're pretty much always going to get a little bit of zinc in there. And that's a good thing. It's almost impossible to get pure CO2 Gans. If you're working anywhere above your neck, you have to have zinc in the mix. The zinc is a connection to the emotions. It's the type, same sort of energy. So it's very compatible energy. And what the CO2 zinc Gans will do is it won't take away the emotions, but it will level them out. So anybody who's manic, who has like extreme mood swings, if they just put, 1 or 2 tablespoons of the water in a glass of water and drink it, their emotional state will calm down. For healing, if you want to use the Ganses for healing, CO2 Gans doesn't really heal anything. It will trigger a healing response, but it's not the right kind of energy for your body to convert into, say, soft tissues. If you blow your ACL or rotator cuff, or you tear a muscle or something like that. The soft tissues are copper oxide Gans. That's the closest thing we have to that type of energy, and that your body will absorb that energy and turn it immediately into tissues. Doesn't have to work hard at it. Makes it very, very easy. Bones, eyes, there's various different protocols out there. And the library, the Spaceship Institute library, they're building up quite well. And you can find a lot of that information in there. I haven't really stressed too much on the medical use of the CO2 Gans. I know it works. I strongly recommend it for anybody, but also go do your own research, because you do need that fundamental knowledge.
Yep. But
we've had reports of bones healing in 2 days. Conditions that just simply go away overnight if everything lines up just right. Keep in mind, this is emerging tech. Yeah. It's relatively new to our experience, so we're probably not working with it the best way we can. But the pads are easy. It's a baggie, a paper towel, and a couple of tablespoons of the water. Soak the baggie, close up the paper towel. It's best to use them in pairs. And you want to, when you make up the pair of pads, you want to kind of have a difference between, you want a parametric gradient between the two. So don't use a little bit more water in one than the other. Or make the paper a little bit bigger in one than the other, because with the Gans, it is an energy source, and it is a conscious moving energy source, and it always moves from the strongest to the weakest. Mm-hmm. So if you've got an internal problem, say you've got a rotator cuff issue, you make up 2 pads which are slightly different, so there's going to be a flow between them, and you sandwich the issue between the 2 pads. So the flow goes directly through where you need it to go. And this works with any of the types of Gans, whether you're working with CO2, CH3, copper oxide, any of them. It's the same theory with that.
Awesome.
There's lots of information out on making Gans. I've got some primers on my YouTube channel. Danny, you'll probably put a link up with it. And I don't know if I have them listed in a playlist or not, but there's not that many videos there, so they're pretty easy to find. And And yourself, you made your own GANs. You know how easy it is. Anybody can do it.
Oh yeah. Tripping around the kitchen with all that stuff on the floor. It was, yeah, anybody. I mean, if I can make it, anybody can make it, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And I have been very impressed. I've got, well, I mean, my body's like a bad dose of Jenga or bad game of Jenga.
Oh, I think we lost Anne for a second.
Okay. Well, just to kind of move on with that thought, if you are in that situation and you've got multiple areas that are having issues, it wouldn't make sense to make a sleeping bag of CO2 Gans. So just put it in your bath. Right? With this, you're never going to use any of the actual substance itself. You're only going to use the water on it. So you take the substance, you put it in a jar like this. I mean, this is I think it's a green relish jar, and fill it with salt or fill it with distilled water. Give it a shake, let it settle. Takes about 20 minutes, and then you can start using this water. Now you can draw this water off and store it. I don't know a lifetime on it, but it should be good for a couple of weeks. But if you want to build it up, you can fill it with distilled water, give it a shake, let it settle, pour that water off into another container, fill it with distilled again, give it a shake, wait for it to settle, pour that off, and you can take that and pour that into your bath. Massive difference. You'd be amazed at the changes that occur. One friend of mine was down in Mexico and went swimming in the Gulf and got core exit disease. And her skin was basically eating itself. And she got a hold of me and I said, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? And I'd already taught her to make the top 4 Ganses. And I just said, CO2 bath. Right? Put the water, CO2 water in a nice hot bath, hot as you can stand it, soak until it's cold. Do that like once or twice a day for the next little while. 2 weeks later, she's fine. She doesn't even have any scars.
Yep.
Wow.
We're gonna get Mr. JC over there to do maybe a tutorial sometime in the upcoming months for the Unfuckers group. So yep. We all have time to kind of gather up whatever we need to make our CO2 Gans, and JC will tell us what all our bits and bobs that we need to have, and then we'll actually do an actual tutorial so people can learn how to make it themselves. But I'm also trying to convince Mr. JC to make it himself so that people who don't want to make it can just buy it off of him, and then they don't have to go through all the hassle. So.
Although that's an awesome idea, I would much rather see the cooperative community where if you are making it, just pass it on.
Yep.
Because it's ridiculously easy to make. It doesn't cost anything. If you want to buy a bottle like this, it's worth a nickel, and it's going to cost me $20 to ship it. So, yeah, I've been thinking about this, and my conscience, I can't sell it.
I know.
I'll give it away. And that's why I say we get enough people.
It's taking up funding for the bottles and stuff like that. Sometimes we have costs that we got to cover.
But the pain pads, John, I mean, I've been so impressed, really, really impressed with them, because I get a sore back every now and again. It's a structural thing. Just put a pain pad on there. Bingo, gone straight away. Amazing.
You'd have better responses with 2 pain pads on either side. Don't put it directly on your spine.
Yeah.
So the energy is passing through where the area is.
Thanks for that. That's interesting.
Yeah, I'm going to find that bottle of because I have some CO2 Gans. I do have some. I brought it back from Australia with me. And I will find it. I'm going to make some pain pads for my rotator cuff that's blown.
Yeah. Now, the pain pads, consider them consumables. They're only going to last so long.
Yeah.
And typically what you'll find is they'll start growing either black, orange, or red spots on the pad. And some cases it's a mold or, some contamination that when you made the pad, no big deal. Other times, like when I used them on my dog Ruff, when he had a rash on his butt, it actually pulled the rash out and it presented in the pad.
Wow.
So when they start to discolor, just dispose of them, make a new one. Because you're only using the water. It doesn't cost anything. It's a paper towel in a bag.
Yeah.
If you're going to have them around,
expensive, homeopathy, CO2 Gans, like I said, even dealing with the herb stuff, it doesn't have to be expensive. It can be really inexpensive.
Yep. If you're going to keep the CO2 around, like if you're going to carry it around in a first aid kit or in your car or whatever else, keep it in the liquid form. Don't make up a pain pad and then put it in your first aid kit and expect it to be good in 3 months, because it's probably not.
Though, John, I have to say that, and I didn't know that actually. I've been using the ones I made originally. I don't know, about a good 6 months or more ago, and they still work.
Oh, yeah, they'll still work. They'll just get kind of grody and not look very pleasant.
kind of looking a little diseased.
Yeah, and it's going to vary with everybody, because everybody's got a different energy. Everybody's contaminated with different energies, and we are working with straight energies. I mean, the only way I can describe this stuff is a fundamental building block.
Yep.
But it's the CO2 Gans is tuned. It's not the broad spectrum like a seawater Gans. It's fairly narrow focused. And like I say, it'll work really good for pain, but it won't do a whole lot for soft tissues.
What's with the saltwater Gans? The seawater?
I was just going to say, what's seawater Gans? I don't know about that one.
Well, seawater is basically all the elements in the periodic table.
Yeah.
When we make a Gans of that, we're making an extremely broad spectrum Gans. Now, I have a small bottle here. And just before I moved, a friend of mine came out from Vancouver, and previous to this, he was just Joe Jock. He didn't think about energies, didn't think about the woo-woo stuff, but he's become extremely sensitive with the energies. And I was showing him the CO2 Gans, and he held on to this bottle, and he's like, wow, this is kind of cool, and didn't really get a sense of any energies coming off it because he had no frame of reference. So he's looking at the bottle and, digging around with this, and I made him up a pad because he had some issues, had knee problems and a few other things. And then I asked him just to hold his hand out like this. And I took the seawater Gans, which you can see looks a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
There we go.
There we go. Yeah.
Lights
a little more.
The lights are too bright. But there's a slight color difference. There's a texture difference. And I set this in his hand like this, and he went, "What's that?" Because he now had a frame of reference for the type of energy. This is a very, very broad spectrum energy, because there's magnesium in it, there's gold in it, there's lead, there's arsenic, there's
copper, and
everything in the seawater Gans. And there's a lot of confusion between seawater Gans and ormus. The process in making ormus is significantly different, and you're going to get a different product. The Gans itself, I guess the best way to describe Gans is pure energy that acts like matter.
Yeah.
Okay. Matter that acts like pure energy. No, that's right. Gans is the energy that acts like matter. Nano is the matter that acts like energy. So depending upon the system, if you're close to the sea and you can get the process of making the seawater Gans down really well, just use that, because it's everything. And your body will simply not absorb what it doesn't require, because it's the fundamental building blocks. If it's not compatible with your system
I
won't
like that idea a lot. That I'm like, I want to go play.
And it's quite easy to do the seawater Gans too, isn't it, John? There's
relatively easy. I haven't gone through the process because there was a whole bunch of upheaval with it, and I didn't want to get mired in the argument. So I just left it alone and let it go. And now there's a few people who actually have it down they've got it down. So I'll see if I can contact those folks and get their process. Yes, Danny, it's very, very exciting to have that huge broad spectrum energy, but each individual spectrum within that is kind of muted because it is a broad spectrum.
Yep.
Okay. So yeah, you're going to get a vast array of benefit, but if you're using it for pain, you're going to get 20 or 30 times the benefit from a CO2 gas because it's constant.
Right.
Wow. I am finding this is I love this. And we're already up 2 hours, folks. So we're going to have to say part 2, the emergency first aid, natural first aid kit. Part 2 will be coming up very soon because we haven't even gotten into the kitchen stuff. I got a whole stuff just for you guys to go look in your kitchen. I got a whole kit put together that most of you have sitting in your kitchen right now, and you just need to know how to use it. So we're going to definitely have to do part 2. I want to thank everyone for being here tonight, and JC and Anne for bringing your knowledge to the table. We were not able to live stream tonight, and we will not be able to live stream Sunday because John needs better internet.
Yeah, my good internet, the earliest time I could get it set up was Monday morning. So today and Sunday shows, sorry guys, but just I don't have the bandwidth to do it right. But
come next week, once John's got some decent internet set up, we will be back to live streaming again. It'll all go back to normal. Normal, like what's relatively normal, kind of sort of normal. So that's it. I want to thank you guys for all showing up, and I want you to think about it because we have a lot of like great kitchen healers in our group, and some of the stuff that people were putting up beyond just our normal little everyday items for healing stuff. And so I want you guys, when we do our next show, be prepared to come out and talk about some of this stuff that you got going on. And we're talking about things like a lot of First Nations healing stuff. They know how to use the herbs, the original peoples and what they use certain plants and herbs for. That's when we get into the more in-depth stuff. We're going to keep it relatively simple for now because that's the idea of trying to not overwhelm people. Keep it really simple, what you know. Everyone knows peppermint. Everyone knows lavender. You just need to know how to use it. So that's it for us tonight. And we will be back Sunday night. I have no idea what show we're doing Sunday night yet because I'm just not that organized. Yeah, that's just the way it goes. So that's it for us. We'll see everyone later.
Bye all.
That's it.